Hey guys, today I have a special treat for you. I get to sit down with the man that I'll be shadowing to get my certification as a Great Game of Business coach. He has been a certified Great Game of Business coach for the past 20 years, just under 20 years. He has a ton of business experience. He is a member of the UIC Chicago Area Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame. His companies that he works with see tremendous growth. He has a ton of stories. He's from the Chicago area. He's the youngest of 11 brothers and sisters. Just a great guy, and we have a great discussion. So, with that, let's go right into it. So, Kevin, just looking at some of your history, very impressive stuff. I don't know if you know this, but I came from the food industry as well.
Wow.
I was in business with my family for a long time and decided to leave back in 2000, 2013 for good. Wasn't for me, I guess.
Kringus, are you Greek?
Yep.
Yeah, I understand.
And you're from Chicago, right?
Yep.
Big Greek town there.
Yes, sir.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, like what brought you to the Great Game and just about your past. I know that you were with Tasty Catering and the awards are, pretty amazing, what you've been able to do. But tell me about what brought you here today.
We started out as three brothers in the food service industry back in the 70s. My brother had two partners that he parted ways with. The three brothers that were in the business, myself, a middle brother, and my oldest brother, branched out on our own in '84 with our own restaurant. Grew that to three. Started catering almost by accident in 1989 when a customer asked for some food to serve at a party at their house. We just happened to stumble upon a ripe and open market, so we jumped into it both feet. By 2005, we sold our last restaurant in our old catering facility and moved into one that was 6 times the size. So pretty tremendous growth from 1999, 2000 to 2005, 6. In 2006, I think it was, we offered two 20-somethings that really, quote unquote, got it. Basically job offers for life with some equity built in. And they surprised us when they came back and said, no, we're leaving unless the culture changes. This command and control stuff doesn't work anymore.
Wow.
We've got to have an employee built and an employee based culture. You three have to follow it better than anybody, or it means nothing. It's just writing on a wall. Because if you can do that, then you can hold others accountable to the culture. If you can do that, we'll stay. So we had some soul searching to do, look ourselves in the mirror and say, can we shove our egos to the curb? Now, we're from a family of 11. I'm the youngest. I'm the last official year of the baby boomers. So we grew up in a household, a 3-bedroom and a converted den in the city. And my father was a World War II Army Air Corps staff sergeant, and my mom sure did outrank him. So that's what we knew was command and control. You did what you were told. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. Right.
Yep.
So we really had to change. And at the time I was just over 40. My oldest brother was almost 60. So thank God we did it. That's when the awards started to come. When we instilled that culture. 2011, we found out about the Great Game of Business in an interesting way. My brother met Jack Stack at a Small Giants. I don't know if you've heard of them. Small Giants retreat in Constance, Germany, of all places.
Wow.
And
yeah, I have heard of that. That was from Vern Harnish, I think, back in the day, right?
Bo Burlingham, I think, was
that's his other author. Yep.
Yeah. So my brother read the book after he debated with Jack about open book management and how to do it, because we'd opened our books since the 80s in our restaurants and had a bonus system tied to it.
Oh, you did?
But it was open book reporting. It was the 10th or 15th of the month looking back at the previous month. It wasn't forecasting. It wasn't looking ahead. So he came back, read the book, sent our CFO down for training, kicking and screaming because the CFO said we could do this ourselves. We don't need to go down for training. CFO went down for training to Springfield in August, booked 4 more of his seats to go down in September because he saw the value in it. We went down for training, built our game in my car on the way back, 4 of us. So we developed a scoreboard. We figured out some mini game targets, came back, started mini games that fourth quarter of 2011, launched the big game in January of 2012. It really spoke to me and resonated with me because I was human resources and purchasing, people and numbers. So I became a coach in late 2012.
Oh, so immediately after starting at the company, at the Tasty Catering.
Yep, we ran into some stagnation with our game as we developed it and put it in place. Basically, it was still the design team's game after 8 months. We hadn't transferred ownership of the game to our people. So my brother said to me in August, I don't know what's going on, but people aren't engaged anymore. It's not like it was the first 3, 4, 5 months. I don't know what it is, but you got to figure it out. So I went back down for more training, now armed with experience of playing the game. Came back, did a few tweaks and changes, and it worked. And I'm like, wow, I could do this.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'd led our green initiative or our eco-friendly initiatives. And my brother was kind of pushing me because he was doing consulting and coaching and leadership and culture. He was kind of pushing me to do something outside the company, like getting involved in that industry. And it just wasn't me. So when this came along and there was an opportunity, I thought, this I could do. This I could have a passion for. This would be awesome. So it was I became a coach kind of as deflection, trying to get away from becoming a eco-friendly type consultant person.
I see.
You know, I don't wear hemp clothes. This to me seemed more rewarding.
Yeah, we have a very similar story. I implemented the Great Game a year ago, maybe 13 months ago, at our agency, our marketing agency, and then became a coach shortly after, maybe 6 months later, just because I have a passion for it. I see the value in it. I grew up just like you. My dad and my mom, command and control. My dad ran the restaurant as if like he made every single decision, and it was the most frustrating thing ever. So as soon as I can get away from that, I did. Into both physically and philosophically, the way to run a business is not that way. I don't know if it ever was, but it's not that way now. That's for sure.
It worked in the 70s and 80s, 90s, but not in the 2000s.
Right. So then how soon after that did you start taking on clients?
Oh, right away. My first client, I think, was like March of 2013. I shadowed a former coach. I shadowed him, this November, December, that time frame. And then March, I started doing speaking at chambers of commerce's, associations, and anywhere that they'd take me, just to hone my skills or craft at it, because I was an introvert.
Yeah.
But you can't be in this role. So I had to get comfortable with the material, comfortable with the knowledge. I had the passion, that was never a question, but just how do I express that the best?
Yeah.
So I did a bunch of speaking things, even went on the road on my own dime to go speak at national conferences and stuff.
Oh, that's very cool.
So that gave me comfortability with the material, comfortability with the processes. So that first year, that was client number one, and I think there was a couple more that year, but it really didn't get quote unquote full time for about 3 years.
Gotcha.
Like you, I separated from the company in June 2021 from all of our companies.
Oh, you did.
With the Great Game and with the culture, we kind of had an entrepreneurial hotbed where 4 other companies sprang up. Employee ideas, we funded them, they ran them. So there's a family of 5 companies. I separated from all those in June 2021. I'd been working pretty much full time as a coach since 2014, 15. And they replaced me with somebody younger, smarter, and cheaper in the business because they knew if they got my salary off the labor line, then they'd get more money.
Yeah,
in
sure.
In gain share. In fact, by 2018, they moved myself and my two brothers into an office next door, completely removing us from the operations
Oh, I see.
because they'd replaced my brothers as well. And the company had its most profitable years in 2018 and 2019.
Without you. Wow. That's interesting. That's a shock to somebody's ego sometimes.
Yeah, but when they're making you money, it's not that bad. No, double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's a similar story to SRC, where they spun off into other companies. I mean, just on a smaller scale, I guess, but very similar story.
Yep.
Kind of what I'm hoping will happen in the agency, where people step up and become more entrepreneurial minded and create different businesses and different ideas.
Yep.
That's awesome. So just about the game itself, let's start with, so the obvious, you've already mentioned it a little bit, but why the great game? What are like the top 1 to 3 reasons for that over other operating systems?
Why it's the only one I know of that gets out to the front lines where the most change can happen. It gets out to the frontline people who, may not have a super high paying job or this, and teaches ownership thinking, how your actions, attitudes, and behaviors impact not only your future, but the company's. It's really those frontline people that I hold near and dear to my heart. I try to have one on every design team. Because what they see from their lens could be different than the leadership teams. In fact, it is different. So number one reason why is it impacts the front line more than anything else I've seen.
That's fantastic.
All right. Second reason, like the tagline with the great game, it's the only sensible way to run a business. I just recently launched with a company in Alaska. They had 6 locations. We did 3 different launches in 3 different cities in 3 days. And the owner said it best, I think. He said, there's a lot of quarters that have fallen into our couch. We got to turn this couch over and shake them out. And I thought that was a brilliant analogy. And who can control those quarters the best?
The people sitting on the couch.
That's right. And their mechanics have to write down their equipment dealer, repair, parts, service. The mechanics would have to write down what they used, and that gets billed to the customer. Well, is it worth it to write down a $3 can of brake cleaner, or I forget, not brake fluid, brake cleaner? It's not worth the time. Well, at a 2% margin, which is what they were running, 2% bottom line, revenue replacement for giving away a $3 can of brake cleaner is 3 times 50, right? Because 2% is 1/50th of 100.
Right.
They got to do $150 worth of more work just to pay for that can of brake cleaner.
Right.
When we use that example at the launches, their mouths just drop like, oh my goodness. And the next morning, that was a different launch. Sorry, I get my stories crossed.
No, that's okay. But I had a similar experience. It's a really powerful exercise once they see what
revenue replacement
is really worth to replace it in revenue. We were running at 10% profit at the time. And I remember I think their jaws were wide open. Like, no, they can't be true. And I had to, a couple times doing the exercise. And now anytime somebody comes up with savings, we turn it into how much money that would cost to replace it.
Yep. And the third reason, it's the easiest way to run a company. Look at us. We started in late 2011, early 2012. And by 2016, I was out of the business and working next door. And by 2018, my other 2 brothers were out. And the company was more profitable than ever by letting the people run it. It's the easiest way to run a company.
Yeah, I think that's what people dream of.
Yes.
And it's probably the only way to get there truly, where you don't have to worry about it.
Yep. Put it in the employees' hands, right? Harness the wisdom of the crowd. 75, 80 employees were much more brilliant than 3 owners.
That's a very good point. And then, so do you focus, it seems like you focus on coaching all different types of businesses?
Yeah, anyone that wants it. And, there's always this special snowflake syndrome, is what I call it. I learned the special snowflake from a Zingerman's trainer,
Yeah.
and I've always remembered it. Everybody thinks that, oh, this is born in manufacturing, and I'm not a manufacturer, and my company's different, and my
Yeah.
people are smarter, or my people won't understand it, or my people don't speak English. All the barriers that people throw up as to why it can't work in their company.
Mhm.
They all think they're a special snowflake. No, if you've got a profit and loss or income statement, you can play the great game. Whether you're a bank, a government body, a school, a not-profit, any industry, it can be done.
That's fantastic. I like what you just said there. If you have a P&L, a bank statement, you can play the great game. And I guess that's every business in the world.
Yep.
So then, that leads me into the next thing is what is the best type of company? Like when is it most successful? Like what type of company or what characteristics in the team do you see that, where you really hit it out of the park with these companies? What type of companies are those?
When does it work best? Yesterday. People always say I have to clean up my books before we're ready. I have to do this. I'm doing this. No, just do it. Just dive in. The water's fine. Okay. Jump in. It'll make it better from day one. Now, the second part of your question is what companies are the best? Typically, I found the ones that have a pretty good culture. All right. Because, culture's, sure, the great game brings a certain culture.
Mhm.
But if there's a certain culture already established where there's some trust, where there's people get along with each other, then it magnifies it.
Wow.
Doesn't mean you have to have that culture, but
Mhm.
that amplifies and quickens the return on the investment.
Yeah. So my next question was going to be like, have you ever had a company like fail or not do so well? And I guess it's the opposite of that. If you have, not as good of a culture or toxic culture and you have to kind of turn over employees, but what would you say like a negative example or a failure would be in terms of your history with the great game?
Well, a couple things. There's a lot in that one to unpack.
Yeah.
One of the principles of the great game is failure is fine as long as it strengthens.
Mhm.
Okay. And I don't like using the term lose or losing or loser or in the great game. Our trainer, Michelle Bridges, taught me this. There are wins and there are opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
So there's no failures, okay, or no losses. There's opportunities to learn.
Mhm.
Secondly, yes, I've had two companies where it didn't work as well as it could have. The one company, I worked with them hard for 2 years. We incepted, we did level 2, we did level 3. And it took us 2 years to uncover a top leader that wasn't bought in. Pretty big company in different cities and whatnot. They were the chief of one city.
Mhm.
He'd pay lip service to the great game in our meetings on our design team. Then he'd go back to his little fiefdom and run a command and control like he always used to, and blame that geographic area's shortcomings on too much overhead and time spent on the great game.
Mhm.
That was early in my career, and I didn't sniff it out as well as I could have.
Mhm.
And then once I did, I begged and pleaded with the owner that something's got to be done. The owner, heart of gold, but not as direct as he could have been. Let's just use direct as a term. Brought in speakers to help with the culture. Spent tons of money on it instead of going and sitting down with a guy and saying, "Hey, look, this is what's going on. This is what needs to change. And if it doesn't, you're out of here." Okay. Just about every great game company, when they go to great game, loses a couple people, 1, 2, 4, 10,
Yeah.
because it's just not in their DNA. They're closer to retirement and thinking about the end game rather than the next new innovation.
Mhm.
Right? They're 55, 60 plus, and I'm not trying to age discriminate or any of that stuff,
Mhm.
but they're, changing at that age is a lot different than changing in your 20s, 30s, 40s.
So they're just resistant to change. Usually that's the mentality.
They just want to play out the string.
Mhm.
So that was one where it didn't work as well as it could have.
Mhm.
Now we were tackling a lot. That was in the construction industry, which is a little tough, but
Mhm.
can be done, has been done. And there was union people involved, which is another challenge. But once
Mhm.
again, they had a P&L, so we could figure it out.
Mhm.
The other one was a manufacturing company or process company, manufacturing type. And they did so well the first year that the owner raised the bar on the bonus by a pretty good increment for year two. They came up short because of this, that, the other thing. So by like May, they knew they weren't making a bonus for the year. So he changed the rules basically. Sure, you can change your bonus, your stake in the outcome, gain share goal every year, but he increased it by 20% or so, where they had to get to achieve a bonus.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty significant.
So it was demotivating.
Yep.
That goes back to what we were talking about yesterday with the gain share and how to build it properly.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. So then what are some stories
So
that you
I'm sorry, Nick. Sorry to interrupt, but
No, go ahead.
where I've seen it struggle is when
Yeah.
the top leaders aren't on board and into it to win it, and they hold on to things. And they resist the change. So
Mhm.
it's not the frontline people that don't jump on board.
Mhm.
It's when leadership doesn't jump on board, their people don't come with them.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because they have, I guess, in their minds, the leadership has something to lose, whereas the frontline workers are only looking at, this could be better for us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's when the egos come in, and there can't be egos,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The mother of modern leadership, Sarah Parker Follett, back in the 20s and 30s. Just imagine that. 10 years after women were given the right to vote, she's the mother of modern leadership. The number one goal of leaders is to create more leaders.
Huh.
Okay. She came up with so many simple principles. And if leaders aren't willing to share their secrets, to elevate those that they're responsible for, what are we doing? Is that a job security? Are they insecure about their job? If nobody can replace them, how are you going to grow into the next role? How are you going to advance?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like, no, it's like an illusion. And they can only go one way eventually.
Oh, it was Mary Parker Follett. Sorry, Mary Parker Follett.
No, I never heard of her actually. I read a lot, but I never heard of her. So then so that goes back to the first step, and that's why it's the first step is start with the right leadership.
Yep.
And why they kind of harped on that first step in our coaching certification so much, because if you don't have the right leadership or the right mentality and they don't have those characteristics, then to that degree you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and I want to be 60 this month, and I don't have to do this. So I've turned down contracts where I rooted out that it was going to be a struggle with the leadership,
Yeah.
where the owner might not have been in it for the right reasons, where they weren't willing to be vulnerable and humble and become a servant leader. They just didn't have the courage to do that. I'm like, it's not worth the struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I'd take them on and stuff because it was a challenge. We win the challenge, and that was great. Now it's, I'd rather be with people who really want it.
Right. That makes sense. Going downstream.
Yep.
So then what about stories that you've had of like the greatest successes with the great game? Anything stand out to you, and specifics about those stories?
I have two that are really my buddies. They're my people.
Mm-hmm.
One is Hildebrand's Tree Tech in West Texas, Lubbock, Texas. And, no joking about are there trees in West Texas, because it is kind of desolate, oil fields, cotton fields. But yeah, there's trees. When Casey invested in us, they were barely doing seven figures, right around there. And they invested in us because Casey really believed in it. And at the time, boy, he was 35 years old. He built the company out of college, took a job in corporate America and really didn't like it. Couldn't stand it, in fact. So then his dad had been in the tree service, and he had worked with his dad. His dad was with a pretty big outfit. So he just decided one day to start his own.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here we come with the great game. They were at 7.5% EBITDA. The first year, a playing great game, they were at 22.5%. Triple profit. Okay. Casey knew that if everybody understood how what they did impacted the financials of the company and their future, incredible. He also did a pretty good split on the gain share or bonus. He wanted to give 70% to his employees of the over. So once you hit your threshold, he wanted to give 70%. Because I think I told you yesterday, those are the guys in the hot West Texas sun or the freezing cold winds in the winter out there doing the work, and he wanted them to have see some of the biggest checks they've ever seen with their name on it. All right, flash forward to, I think I started with Casey 2018, 2019. They were in a leased shared yard with two other businesses that was just in crappy condition. Over the course of these three, 4 years, they bought their own land with their own buildings with plenty of room to grow. Now they're doing 3 million-ish, and the EBITDA is still up there. I don't know if it's quite the 22.5% of the first year, but I know it's still in the teens. Amazing. So that kind of growth in 3-4 years from $1 million to $3 million, and keeping the EBITDA and getting your own land and their own yard was huge for them.
That's a great story.
The second story is Ryan Lawn and Tree, based in Kansas City, but they have I think six operations, 6 cities, 5 states. Each of those operations has 5 different divisions of what they do. It's outdoor care. ESOP company, when we started, stock price was 900 or 990 in 2017, 2018. It's over $2,700 today. So their employee owners realized the 300% gain. All right, by playing the great game. It was the owner's want or dream or aspiration to get to 100 million by 2030.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and all the vice presidents and the branch managers would kind of roll their eyes when he would say 100 million by 20. That was Larry's dream. That was Larry's vision. Once we dug into the work together in the high involvement planning and strategy side, the team really rallied, and they decided that they were going to grow in this area 15%, in this area. Long story short is they put a plan together for 10% growth. They had 17.9% growth, if I remember correctly, 17.6, something like that, year one. And their bottom line grew almost the same proportion. Okay. Year two, I think it was a 15 or 16% growth. So when they redid their 5-year planning, they look at, wow, this puts us on pace for 125 million by 2030. So once it was their target and not the owners, once they saw how they could get there, once they took ownership of that number, people, when they set their own targets, usually achieve them or smash them, and they did it. So that's a big key to the great game, Nick, is that transfer of ownership. Instead of it being Larry's trucks and Larry's facility and Larry's this and Larry's that, because he's the owner,
mm-hmm.
It was their truck. It was their facility. It were their clients, not the companies. That transfer of ownership in the great game is probably the biggest single factor of making it hugely successful or not. When we can successfully transfer that sense of ownership to the people, fantastic.
And then that sense of ownership, Kevin, that comes at different times for each company?
It comes at different time for each person.
Oh, each person, I see.
Yeah, and each company, right?
Yeah.
And that also hinges on the leadership in companies,
mm-hmm.
right? Nick, you're the restaurant manager, and a server comes up to you or a cook and asks you a question. And you, being the leader, okay, I should know the answer. I got to give them an answer. That addles their brains. That squashes entrepreneurial thinking, ownership thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Once we at our company started answering questions with questions,
mm-hmm.
that thinking started accelerating like a flywheel. So, server comes in and asks you, should I do my side work now or later? I don't know. What do you think? If you own the company, what would you do? If you were in my position, what would you think would be the right thing to do? That way they're not using and taxing your brain the rest of their lives. They're growing their own thinking.
Yeah. It's
That
a
make did I give
Yeah,
an
it's
example on that?
it's so powerful because even though I think I do that at the agency, I think I also tend to go back to this, answering questions, and I got to stop myself and say, I got to. So yeah, you're right. The leadership is kind of the constraint in how fast or how slow the ownership transfers.
That's why when I do implementations, I have recognition. I have a leadership thing in there. I put some stuff in just because I think that's so key and so important in
Mhm.
this process. Sure, we could set this up. Anybody with a profit and loss or income statement, no problem.
Mhm.
But it's the people that are going to execute it, and how do we get that done best?
Mhm.
Okay, we got to supply the people the tools to be great.
That's
You know,
like
the
it's
the
put
the,
this.
the
Go ahead.
third time the head chef came to me about purchasing and something about purchasing with a question, and I'd already answered him the first two times with what do you think or what would you do if you were in my shoes. The third time he came to me with the question, but then he had solution A and solution B and maybe even solution C, and said, I'm really leaning towards solution B. Go for it. What did that cost me in brain space or time? Pretty soon he wasn't coming to me unless it was something really tricky or sticky or new.
So that right there is like a small little microcosm of what you said earlier, and it's the only sensible way to run a company, and it's the fastest way to get yourself out of the picture so that your employers are running it. But it starts with that little action
Yep.
that just happened.
Hmm.
Because instead of coming to you for an answer or coming to someone else for an answer and then blaming them because of the answer, they then have to stop, and it's a whole different mentality. And it's like, wait, what should I do, and how will that impact the company? And so they start thinking about how each of their actions impact the company. It's just so powerful.
You got it. A quick story, Nick, if you don't mind. Um, I think it was 2014, the 3 years in, where we had a mistake, a big mistake. I forget exactly what happened, but we had to give $7,200 back to a client. Now that's a huge order. At the time, I think we were probably a $5.5–6 million company. I forget what,
Mhm.
but that's a lot of money to give to a client. But we screwed it up, right?
Mhm.
So we gave them their money back. The next week in the huddle, a line worker, not even a manager or supervisor, said, "Hey, that mistake last week, where is that in all those numbers up there?" And we didn't have a warranty line, right? There's no warranty in food service. Well, the sales come out of the sales, but all the costs are still in the cost of goods. And I thought, wow, that's a really good question. Well, they didn't stop there. They said, so basically it came out of profit. And I said, yeah, that's a better way to think about it. And out of that profit, our bonus pool is set up about, it's a 50-50 split. So out of that $7,200, $3,600 came out of our pockets and $3,600 came out of the company's pockets. Yeah. Oh, we got to do something about that.
Mm.
At the time, that was about 40 something dollars a person. They even said, so that's about 40, $50 a person. Yeah. That we lost last week. Yeah. We got to do something about that. So we did a mini game. Now it was a company-wide mini game about mistakes, not giving back comps. That's what we called it. A comp is when you comp something because you screwed it up, you made a mistake.
Mhm.
We did a order entry mini game on mistakes because if they don't enter the order correctly, we're set up for failure. Okay.
Mhm.
Then we did a culinary one that they labeled the food correctly. It got out to the delivery personnel on time. We did a delivery one that they packed everything correctly, didn't forget anything, got to the client on time. So we did mini games throughout the company, all focused on mistakes. That year, we'd given away the trailing 12 months. We'd given back $32,000 on about $6 million in sales. Okay, not too bad for a catering company. There's a million variables that go into it.
Mhm.
3 years later, on about $9 million in sales, we gave back $4,600. So
Wow.
32,000 to 4,000, that's $28,000 delta. But think of the impact on our company beyond that. Okay, less mistakes equals less customers leaving, equals less new customers that sales has to sell to replace leaving customers. Okay, equals systems and processes improvement. It changed the face of our company, and we realized that mistakes, or we call them comps, that's a critical number on our scoreboard today. All right, it's tracked, measured every day, every week. Okay. Are we ahead or behind last year? What anything this week, and what's it year to date? It's talked about. The systems and processes and the behaviors that change based on that 90-day mini game live well beyond the mini game in our company. All right. When our sales team goes in to sell, like say a group of 9 admins in an office building that cover 10 floors or whatever, they ask in a questionnaire, what are the top 3 concerns you have when it comes to ordering catering? And it's not price, it's not quality of food, okay, it's not presentation, it's we get everything we ordered, we get it on time every time, and we get hot food hot and cold food cold. So if we can address those 3 things, we'll have a bigger market share than our competitors. We'll steal their clients. Okay, those are the top 3 concerns. I always joke about it. I say, so that means I could take my dog's bucket of kibbles, and as long as it was there on time, whether it was hot or cold, it was supposed to be, and they got enough, we're good.
That is amazing. So that, I mean, you said that it went from $6 million in revenue to $9 million in revenue in 3 years. That's tremendous growth.
Yeah, a 50% increase in revenue. And what's that? 45, let's call it 5,000 out of 32,000, and a 80% reduction in mistakes.
Yep.
That's significant.
It's amazing.
Yeah, everybody in our company realized that we don't make mistakes, we win. A simple, critical number, if you want to call it that.
And then you're like Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
We don't make mistakes, we win.
That's right.
Stop beating ourselves.
That's right.
Wow. That's true. I mean, it worked out. I mean, the revenue growth is like proof in the pudding.
Well, let's just follow this example. A driver shows up and he forgot to pack the waters that were on an order, or the waters weren't on the original entry form. They were on the original entry form, but the people didn't enter it. Somewhere the mistake happened.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There's 15 minutes before they serve. If the driver makes it down to a 7-Eleven or a gas station and picks up the waters and brings them back and puts them on the table, no mistake, no comp. Sure, it was a mistake, but there's no comp.
So anybody can step in and fix it.
Yeah. And as long as, service goes on as scheduled on time, we're good. But in non-great game playing companies, the driver will show up with your order. Oh, where are the waters? Oh, we don't have them. Oh, we'll take it off your bill. Okay, see you later.
Yep.
Right? They don't care. They don't have a stake in it.
Man, that's so powerful. So
that makes it 75 owners running around, even though nobody's an employee owner. We're not ESOP. They take ownership of their actions.
Yeah, what you just said is everything. Because if you can imagine, 75 owners, everyone's an owner running around, how would that look? And how would the service to clients look? And how would that business look, as opposed to, that says everything about the great game, as opposed to one owner or 2 owners that really care about what the client gets in the end and how we're serving clients, as compared to 75.
Yeah, that driver comes back. Yeah, we got to take the orders off that. Well, why didn't you go and get them? Oh, I don't know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, then the owner gets pissed off.
Yes.
Says like, God, these guys never listen.
Yeah.
It's the system that's the problem, not the people, really.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Sorry if I veered off your question.
No, I love it. I love it. I want these stories. It's actually making me more excited about the great game. And I'm also taking these and kind of putting them into my own life and how I'm implementing the great game. You're shining a spotlight on the owner a few times, which is kind of painful, but it's necessary.
Well, I'm kind of lucky in that I'm not an alpha. My 2 older brothers that are 6 and 16 years older definitely are. So I was always kind of the front line. I understood the front lines a little better than from their positions.
Right, right. You
so
have to be.
so it was a little easier for me. I've got 5 older sisters, a dominant mother that's since passed, a wife that's an industrial engineer, and things go in order, and 2 daughters. So I'm surrounded uh, by that humbling presence. They all take advantage to humble me any chance they get, and that's okay with me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's power in that.
Yep.
So if we can move on, the next thing I want to talk about just for the remainder of the call is talk about the process of a company coming to you. First, like how do they find you, and then the process of the launch up until launch, and then I haven't really gotten into phase 2 and 3 of Great Game in the coaching side of things yet. But what's the process look like? And for up until launch and then beyond.
All right. I'm not going to get too in the weeds technical, so feel free to ask questions, but
Okay.
somehow they find out about the Great Game. I think it's 70% or more of our business comes from referrals. So somebody seeing it in action in another company or that kind of thing.
Mhm.
All right. So they come to us. Many want to self-implement, and that's okay. All right. Uh, One coach says that Dave Skolton says this, and it's so true. You want to lose weight, right? So you start eating better, and you're going to lose weight. Okay. Start exercising more. You get a treadmill. Okay, that's step 2. Step 3 is to hire a personal trainer. Now, which one of those 3 things gives you the best chance of success in getting that end goal of losing weight?
Definitely.
The personal trainer to hold you accountable. Not only that, but it's amazing that the owner can say something to a design team, or I can say it. It carries much more weight when I say the exact same thing because I'm an outsider, I'm an expert, I'm this, I'm that. So sometimes having that outside presence, other than owner or other than the top CEO or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
people will listen and engage in it more.
So how did you get over that in Tasty Catering? Did you see it as an obstacle, or if it was an outsider, do you think it would have went faster?
It's never been gotten over. Tasty Catering is the hardest company I coach because they don't pay me, so therefore I don't have a value, right? I'm just there as I should, Tasty Catering's game should be the best because I'm a decent coach. So you hit the nail on the head, Nick. I want to trade services with Dave Skolton, and Dave comes in and kicks their butt.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm thinking the same thing in my agency. Like I think they would definitely get it faster if it wasn't me telling them.
yes. So back to the original question, if I answered that one, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're interested in a coaching proposal. We get people on the line. We review the proposal. They select a coach. There's different videos that you can watch. They select a coach. Once the contract's signed, within 24 to 48 hours, you get a reach out from the home office. We do employee surveys and management surveys, and there's a financial information tool we need filled out.
Mm-hmm.
I send out a welcome, or as a coach, I'd send out a welcome within 24 to 48 hours with next steps. We got to put together that design team that's going to be champions, advocates, advisors, and communicators about all things Great Game. They're going to get a 3-4 month head start on the rest of the team. So we're coaching the coaches for after level 1 launches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So once we get the design team picked, then I get their contact info. I do one-on-one calls with each one. Okay. Here, the company hired this outside consultant. Change is a coming. People intrinsically fear change and all that other head garbage that comes with, oh, what's the company doing now? I like those one-on-one calls because it humanizes. It starts the relationship with each person on an individual basis before we're in a room. I've got some standard questions. I lay out a little bit about my history, trying to humble myself to show them, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. I'm not some super special wizard that's going to come in and tell you what to do. I really stress that I'm relying on the design team's knowledge of their business and their industry, combined with my knowledge of great game and how to implement. We've got to work together to adapt. It's not a book you pull off the shelf and say, let's do it. You adapt the principles to that business model, the industry, however we adapt it to what's going to work best for that company. In other words, I need you. All right. I'm not just going to come in here and dominate and tell you what to do and slap your hands when you're wrong. You know, we need to work together. We need to play in a sandbox nicely together. So that puts everybody at ease, and also tell them in some little bit of detail what's coming for the next 12 weeks. What are the expectations? What is going to be a drain on their time? All right. So then we have the initial onsite. That's 12 hours of learning, fire hose of information, all things great game, where we do some financial literacy training. We do an overview. What is the great game? We delve into the why a little bit. We do mini game training. We do a mini game workshop where hopefully we'll build a mini game on site there that the design team can play over the next 3 months while we're doing the implementation and see some results and learn all about mini games. Then we do what we call a path to critical number exercise, where we really turn over every rock in the company and see what's underneath. That's a pretty powerful exercise. It teaches me a lot about their business. It teaches them a lot about their business. You know, they've never seen the books before, so this is kind of the start of that. You know, so many times in that path to critical number exercise, I'll ask at some point, all right, outside of the ownership, everybody else, tell me, or write down on a slip of paper, what's the most profitable item you sell or service that you sell? And you'd be amazed at the number of different answers. And then after they're done, I'll ask the owner, all right, what is it? And it's one of them, but here's a lot of times a lot of leaders, but here's 6, 8, 10 people in the room and there's 6 different answers. They don't even know what the most profitable item they sell is. That's not a way to run business to me. And then I'll ask them, what's your least most profitable? Then they'll say, well, why don't we stop doing that? Well, that's your highest in sales volume. Sure, it's least profitable, but that's what keeps the light on. And we talk about profit generators and overhead absorbers and all sorts of fun stuff in there and really learn about their business and the market. Anyway, so that's the onsite. I think I covered everything with that. Then we set about 12 weeks of 1 hour a week video calls where we build their game. We build their scoreboard. We design their huddles. We learn about forecasting because that's the secret sauce of a great game, is that constant look ahead, looking forward at things we can really impact change on instead of being a historian looking at last month. Okay. And I like to start practice huddling by week 3 or 4. So we'll do a practice huddle using actual numbers and actual forecasts on the design team level only, so we can learn, where do the numbers come from? What do I use to get the numbers? What do I use to get my forecast? We go through a cycle of that for 6 or 8 weeks. Then we get actuals back from something we forecast and see how bad we did. And then we can dig into why. What did we think about? What came in last minute in revenue? What was the cost spike or drop? You know, we begin to learn so much more about the business during that practice time, right? There's no failures, only opportunities to learn. Okay. And also during that time, we're rounding out the rest of the game. So we start every huddle with review of the mini game. How's it doing? We do a practice huddle. Then we go into more learnings and teaching around the great game. Behind the scenes, I'm working with ownership or CFO on the gain share bonus that I want reviewed with you yesterday. That'll take about 3 meetings to get that right. I like to roll that out to the design team 2 weeks before launch.
Okay.
Why? We hit them with it and get their knee-jerk reactions, because we'll have the same knee-jerk reactions at the launch, and we address their questions as they come up. Then they get a week to think about it and come back with anything else they thought of. Okay, because to me, it's critical that they understand the gain share and how it works and why it was developed, how it was developed, and kind of take ownership of it. Because after launch, who's going to go ask the owner about the gain share? But are they going to ask the design team members? You betcha. So it's critical that they understand it. Okay. Then we have the all team launch. We get everybody, as many people in the company together. Sure, it's expensive. Sure, it stinks to shut down for 6, 7 hours in a day, but it's an investment that's going to pay dividends within that first year times 5 at least. Okay. Get them all together. We start out with sharing the why, the owner and 2 or 3, 4 design team members. Okay. I share my why at the beginning, then 2 or 3, 4 design team members, then the owner. Why are we doing this? Why the change? We've got to firmly and clearly express that why, and paint the vision for the future. Then I jump into an overview. What is the great game? Then a mini game overview. What are these mini games all about? And I transfer ownership of the mini games to the people. I tell them, if you had a suggestion box, mini games are your new suggestion box. All right. Then we do open the books and share the numbers and show a little bit of history as compared to industry averages, so people understand as we're opening the books exactly where are we at, where have we been at. And that sets the stage for the gain share bonus, because if we unroll the bonus first without showing any prior history, how would they know if it's attainable?
It's not.
Okay. So in that open the books segment, I typically stop before I show the open the books and say, based on every dollar in revenue last year, how many cents of it was profit in this company? I'll have the crowd call out answers, and I hear 30 cents, 40 cents, 20 cents, 12 cents. And when I show it was actually 5 cents, people's mouths drop. Really? And then I explain how hard it is to make money. And I explain that public opinion is 36 cents. The average of 212 industries in the United States is 6.5 cents. And Walmart's happier than pigs and you know what at 3.1 cents. Okay. And they're like, Walmart, yeah, they report hundreds of billions of dollars in sales and revenue and profit, but they don't never say what the percentage is.
Right. Sure.
Most companies on Wall Street you'd invest in blue chip stocks are single digit profit. That's the reality. And out of that single digit profit, 30 cents or more goes to pay the government taxes.
Yeah, I would say not many people know that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Huge misconception. So a lot of people who don't want to open their books are afraid their employees will know what they make. And I say, you should be proud to show them how little you make.
You should want them to know.
Exactly.
They'll be on your side.
You know, as a business owner, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I digress.
So I have a couple questions.
Wait,
Kevin.
after you open, sorry, after you open the books, Nick.
Yeah.
Then the second to last segment is unveiling the gain share and explaining it to everybody how the gain share, what's in it for me, because all day they've been sitting there paying attention. What's in it for me? What's in it for me is the question in the back of their heads. That's normal, it's natural, and it's fine. All right. After the gain share is unveiled, then I like to put in, how can I impact my gain share? And I try to draw line of sight for each job position in the company, whether it's sales, whether it's the people who do the work, cost of goods, whether it's the people in the office with the overhead and admin expenses, how each one can impact the gain share in a positive or negative light.
And you just give examples of how they could.
Yep.
Got it.
So for us, for every $10 delivery fee we have to give back at a 5% net profit target, that means we've got to do $200 in business just to break even on that. So, examples like that, Nick.
Gotcha. So my questions from that process were, I didn't know this at first, but you have a different coach come in for the financial literacy piece?
I bring in a trainer.
Trainer.
The Great Game's got a staff of three executive professional trainers, and they're so good at it. They've gone over it over and over and over again. Two, it gives a different face to people instead of me for a day and a half or whatnot. It gives a different face. All right. I work together with the trainer, so it's not like I disappear, but it's more robust when it's done by a trainer in person.
Excellent. So that is they pay for that on top or of the coaching, or you try to build it all into one package deal, or what?
It's included.
Gotcha. Okay. The other question was, when you're doing the critical number exercise, when you're forecasting and you're going back on the actuals, the final, and looking at how you did, you do that every month, or you want them to do that every month?
Absolutely. That's the best way.
Got it.
All right. Let's talk about forecasting just a minute, if it's okay.
Yeah.
You
Please.
know, a forecast, I hate to use the word prediction, but that describes it. It's a prediction. Where do you think you're going to be?
Mm-hmm.
But prediction sometimes conjures up images of Ouija boards and crystal balls.
Like
No,
a
no, no.
guess. Mhm.
We're using data. What did we do the last 2 Januaries? Okay. What did we have in revenue before we started the month? What did we add during the month? And where did we end up? What's the percentages?
Mhm.
Okay. We look at recent market conditions, the last 3, 4 months. Have we been trending ahead or behind budget? What's
Mhm.
been going on? We look at actual data. What's already in this month? What do we know about? And on top of that, we stir in our swag, our silly, wild ass guess, and say, use our gut, right?
Mhm.
I think it's going to be this month. So it's not like we're just guessing. It's not like we're just throwing a number out there. We're using actual data from historical data
Mhm.
and recent market conditions, what we already know about, and then we throw on top of that, all right, I think we're going to end up here. And the first 6 months, I tell clients, don't worry about being hugely accurate. It's okay to forecasting, POOR, for the first 6 months, because that's where the learning comes from, right? If this forecasting was so easy, everybody might do it.
Mhm.
We got to learn from our mistakes. It took our company, our special event sales team, 3 years to start getting within on a regular basis 15% in their week 1 forecast to where we ended, 20%.
Mhm.
But by working different models, by having 3 years of experience, we ended up combining 3 models together, and voila, the average of those was within plus or minus 10% on a regular, consistent basis, usually 5%. Because how do you know on January 3rd who's going to book a $60,000 event for January 20th? We don't know, but
Right.
trends, right?
Yeah. So at the beginning, there's a lot more assumptions, like week 1, week 2, and then it's gets more accurate as the data comes in, right?
You got it.
Yeah. So the last question I have is about the annual plan. So when do you have them create the first annual plan? Is that after they start with these practice huddles?
We've got to have a plan or budget somehow, some way in order to
Okay.
do our forecasting, because we need a plan. We need a benchmark. That's our target. That's what we're going for.
Mhm.
Um, the other part about it is this planning becomes much better as well. Instead of owners and CFOs sitting down in November or December and saying, well, what do you think we're going to do next year?
Mhm.
Oh, I think we could do this, or I could. It becomes much more scientific. So your plan or budget gets a lot better too.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Kevin. Obviously, people support what they help create. That's what I always like to end these videos with. But do you have any final words for anybody watching this?
I'm going to steal some from Henry Ford. If you're thinking about this great game of business, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. So
That's awesome.
if you go into it with it's not going to work, because instead of how can we adapt this to our whatever,
Mhm.
it's not going to work. It's going to be frustrating. If you go in there with that right attitude, all right, how can we make this work for our business? It'll work all day long.
I love it. There's so many examples from so many different industries. So how can that not be true, right?
Yep.
All right, Kevin, thank you so much for your time. Really generous. Thank you so much. And I'll be seeing you in Indianapolis, I think,
Yes, sir,
on
Mr. Nick.
Monday.
Looking forward to it.
All right, same here. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.